Whether you call it Kveik, Kvik, or Kvike, there's no denying that this unique Norwegian yeast has had a remarkable impact on the brewing scene, and Imperial Yeast's A43 Loki is one of the best versions out there. With the ability to produce a clean beer when fermented as warm as 104 degrees Fahrenheit or 40 degrees Celsius, you heard that right, while also performing well at more standard ale temperatures, Imperial Yeast A43 Loki is as versatile as it gets, meaning you have zero excuses for failing to brew throughout the year. Learn more about A43 Loki at imperialyeast.com and grab a pouch for your next batch to see what all the fuss is about. Well, here we are at the end of yet another very interesting year. While we were going over topics we might cover on this Brews Views show, it occurred to me that this is our final episode for 2021, and it just seemed fitting that we spend some time talking about our thoughts and opinions about everything that's gone on with Brülosophy over the last year. This is the Brülosophy podcast. I'm your host, Marshall Schott, and joining me on this episode is contributor Cade Jobe.
Yeah, it's 2021 was a weird year, right? I mean, a lot of things didn't really go as planned. There was still a lot that did, but there was certainly, I don't know about you, but like coming out of 2020 with the vaccines on the way and the end of the pandemic in sight, I was pretty excited, but now here we are amidst Omicron and, I don't want to start the episode off with a downer. There's a lot to look forward to in 2022, but man, 2021 was a heck of a year, and it especially impacted Brülosophy, and I'm excited to talk about that. So
yeah. I think I speak for both of us, Cade, when I say that these Brews Views episodes are usually a lot of fun because, for one, it's our opportunity to really speak our mind about certain topics. Typically, we refrain from sharing our opinions in favor of sharing data, but that's not the case with Brews Views. I have a feeling this is going to be especially true on this particular episode, given how broad our topic of choice is, pretty much anything Brülosophy related that's happened over the last year. Now, this being the case, and with the hope of keeping things as real as possible, we are not going to be as vigilant about the language we use, so consider yourself warned. We're not going to be too terse or offensive or anything like that, but we may use language we don't usually use on this show. So, all right, before we get started, I just wanted to send a huge thank you to everybody out there who has made the decision to support us over at patreon.com/Brülosophy. I know we talk about it every episode, and the reason is because it is hands down our most important source of support, without which we would not be able to keep doing this thing the way that we do it. So again, thank you. We've heard you and know the rewards are just a small part of the reason you're supporting us, but we do hope you're enjoying that little bonus. Over the last month, I've been booking new guests for our monthly live Q&A sessions, and I am so stoked for everybody coming up in 2022, like our January guest, Sarah Flora from the Flora Brewing YouTube channel and blog. In addition to being an all-around brewing badass, Sarah is such an incredible resource for homebrewers making rad videos of product reviews, brew days, and beer evaluations. Given the overabundance of men in this hobby, which is undeniable, it's also very refreshing to see a powerhouse like Sarah get some attention. Now, in order to be a part of this event, you have to make your pledge of just $3 or more per month. That's only $36 a year at patreon.com/Brülosophy no later than January 28th, 2022, as Sarah will be taking questions on Saturday the 29th. It's so weird to be saying 2022 now. As a patron at this level, you'll also have access to all past sessions with guests like John Palmer, Russian River's Vinny Chilurzo, Grandmaster BJCP Judge Gordon Strong, Annie Johnson, and many, many more. We also offer other reward tiers for things like access to unpublished contributor recipes and a unique monthly discount at YakimaValleyHops.com. To learn more about how you can be rewarded for helping us do what we do, head over to patreon.com/Brülosophy. And if you wouldn't mind letting us know what you think about this show by leaving a rating and review in Apple Podcast or wherever it is you listen to podcasts that allow you to do those reviews, we'd really appreciate it. Feedback is brought to you by Brewers Hardware, who offer brewers beautiful stainless gear such as the turnkey BH15 Pilot Brewing System, which has a hard plumb manifold to eliminate all hosing changes during the brew process. Brewers Hardware has a ton of unique purpose-built products useful to both professionals and homebrewers. Go see for yourself at brewershardware.com, and don't forget to mention Brülosophy when you're checking out to receive a free gift. That's brewershardware.com. Adam Bass wrote in with feedback after listening to episode 200, which was Brewin' number 19. Adam said, a listener wrote in asking about IPAs that started out great, but a week later faded really quickly, and there was no hop aroma or flavor anymore. As you guys suggested, I completely agree that oxidation could do this, but I have another idea based on having the same problem a few years ago. Hydrometer samples tasted awesome. The beer was fantastic for a few days before it started to lose all flavor. Then after a while would develop an inappropriate, slightly bitter aftertaste. Batch after batch kept having the same problem. I scoured the internet looking for answers, stumbling on everything from oxidation to carbonic bite. I reviewed my whole process. None of these things solved the problem. I'm very cautious when it comes to cleaning my equipment and my kegging system. I rinse with BLC between kegs and replace my lines yearly, so it came as a shock to me when I discovered the problem. Beer line contamination. Out of pure desperation, I eventually tore my whole system apart and discovered goop growing in one of my quick connects. After the problem was fixed, the beer tasted great again. Malt and hop flavor was back, and the slight bitter taste was gone. I've tasted infected beers before, and this was absolutely nothing like that. Since then, I literally take apart every quick connect that comes into contact with beer and my taps between batches, and when I discover stuff, it often seems to happen to beers that have been gelatin-fined in the keg. Interesting. Making me wonder if those cloudy pints right after fining still have gelatin that sticks in the lines and contributes to the problem.
Ew, gross. Goop in the quick disconnects.
So gross, dude. Yeah.
I'm terrified. I want to go look at my quick disconnects now because I don't think I've actually like broken into those and cleaned those. Ooh, yuck.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I'm scared because I don't think. I mean, of course, I always clean them. Right, but that usually just involves me like pushing like the plunger at the bottom with my finger and like letting it soak in some water for a little bit, and maybe some brewery wash or something like that to just kind of knock anything off that's in there. But man, I've never taken them apart, and now I'm really worried. That actually reminds me, this is kind of a crazy story. A couple of weeks ago, my pump on my my brow supply thing wasn't working. I turned it on and I was like, crap, it's not working. What the heck? What's going on? So I broke it all down, and there was just this big old thing of like black sludge that had grown in that pump. And I was now every time I'm like, nope, we're pulling this apart. I'm brushing that pump every single time. It's super easy to take apart, so it's not that big of a deal. But yuck, that stuff how does it even get there, right? How does it get there, and why does it do that? Why does it turn into grossness?
Well, it sounds to me, I mean, I'm presuming here, but it sounds to me like Adam might fine with gelatin, like, and then not cold crash. So add the gelatin finding either in the keg or toss it in to the warm beer before racking it over to the keg, which then would, result in that gelatin fining still being in suspension and then eventually dropping out into the keg as it chills, which then you're going to be transferring that through your beer lines, at least some of it. And so if that's the case, I could see there being goopy gelatin type stuff stuck in the quick connects or whatever. But the only issue I have with this idea of that being the culprit for reduced beer aroma and flavor is that the beer is really only in contact with the beer line for like a fraction of a second when it's flowing through. I don't see how that would take away aroma and flavor. To me, if you're losing aroma and flavor, it's happening to the entire batch. So it would have to be like some sort of a contamination that's like crawling up the beer line, affecting the whole keg. But hey, I mean, Adam seems to have fixed his problem, and that's all that matters. So either way, I'm glad that's the case, Adam, and we appreciate you sending in the feedback. If you have show feedback, you can send it to feedback@brülosophy.com or drop us a line on social media. I love low ABV session beers, and I love a good sour beer. So it's no surprise I'm a fan of a well-made Gose. Now, I've had some pretty awful salt bombs from people who apparently think this style is supposed to taste like tart seawater or whatever, yuck. But the good ones, so good. Well, listener and patron Rob Cohane from Massachusetts sent me a bottle of That's a Swell Gose, a collaboration brew between Stoneface Brewing and Swell Oyster Company that was made with swell oysters and lemongrass.
1 minute beer review with Justin and Tim. Look at this hazy son of a gun.
Yeah, this is it's like looking through a unfiltered wheat type beer.
This might be a sour.
I'm going to call this Journey in the Bog.
Just by smelling it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, definitely. I like this.
Oh, my gosh. This is a sour.
Definitely good. It's not very sour, though, but it tastes really good. Easy drinking.
Oh, my gosh. This is good. You're getting that little tingle on the back after it sits.
It doesn't have that bite where it really...
Yeah,
that type of stuff.
I believe
but
that's the acidicness. I don't know. It's alkalinity.
it's good though. It smells good.
This is, oh my gosh, this is good. Yeah, this is fruity,
I don't know what fruit though.
dry. Blueberry? No, not blueberries. Whatever fruit it is, it's definitely unfiltered. I mean, that is a haze that I've ever
Definitely
seen. It's like they just
unfiltered.
kind of threw some fruit in there and said, hey,
It's
get
good.
to it. This is really good.
It's not in your face sour, but it's a good. I would drink this.
This is one of those beers that if you want to introduce people to your sour program,
Yeah, break
you
them
start
in,
out with
slowly.
this.
Yeah. That's a good example. I do like this.
Is this a ghost?
Oh,
He's got big eyes. Did I hit the nail on the head?
dang!
Oh, I think I got it right.
That's good.
I would drink this all day and then twice on Sundays because it's the Sabbath.
I'm going with I like this.
I do too.
9.5.
9.5. That's impressive.
I liked
I was
it.
gonna get this was a 9 for me. So 9.1 just to be difficult.
First off, I was shocked that Justin actually nailed the style on this one. I had no clue he even knew what a gosa was. But wow, what a good call on his part! And boom, he got it. He nailed it. It was a gosa. It was a unique one. I didn't taste any oyster in this one. I'm wondering if maybe that's where they got their that briny, salty character that you can get in gosas. And regardless, this beer was absolutely excellent. Fairly low acid, but still perceptibly tart. Had a balanced saltiness that wasn't overwhelming at all, barely noticeable in fact, and a very, very nice bready malt flavor, which when combined was just so refreshing.
Yeah, that's my problem always with gosas. I guess that's how you say it. It's all right, Justin. I call them gosas too. So, but yeah, but gosa, whichever. The salt is always my issue with them. I've had very few good examples, unfortunately, and that may just be it's not one that I pick up very often, or maybe I'm just too afraid when you say something like oyster in a beer. I'm like, man, that's going to taste like seawater, and I really don't want to drink that. Or maybe I just have bad experiences like gurgling salt water as a kid or something. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, it doesn't sound like a beer that I would try, but hell, I mean, the guys seem to like it, and it seems like you liked it too. So maybe that's one I would do. It's got to be that salt. That salt's got to be, like you said, it's got to be just a touch there where you notice it, but it doesn't taste like briny seawater, or that the beer doesn't taste like actual oysters.
Yeah, it did not taste like oysters. That being said, I absolutely love raw oysters. But I remember I'm trying to think, maybe it was like 12 years ago or so, when gosas became this kind of popular trend in homebrewing, and a couple local people made them and brought them to homebrew club meetings back then, and they were god awful. I mean, it tasted like ocean water, and I came to learn. I've never brewed a gosa. I've made plenty of Berliner Weiss, which is essentially kind of an unsalted version of a gosa. But I came to learn that the saltiness isn't necessarily supposed to be the feature by any means. Apparently the story that I was told is that the water that was used in that region of Germany just happened to have a higher sodium content, and that's that you got that kind of balance between the tart and the salty, which kind of contributes a sweet character to it when it's done right, but it's not supposed to taste like salt water. So this one I thought was very well done. I appreciate you sending it to us, Rob. If you'd like to have your beer or any other fermented beverage you feel like sending in reviewed by Justin and Tim, you can email me, Marshall@Brülosophy.com, and we'll get you all set up. We got to take a quick break. We'll be right back after these messages. Chilling work can be a chore, especially after a long brew day, but not with the Xchillerator Counterflow Chiller, which can chill a 5-gallon or 19-liter batch of wort in 5 minutes or less, leading to a strong cold break and clear wort in the fermenter. Brülosophy's Matt Del Fiacco uses the Xchillerator Max and absolutely loves it. In addition to improved chilling efficiency, every Xchillerator comes with a 5-year warranty that covers the entire chiller for manufacturer defects. If you're looking to up your chilling game and a CFC is right for you, head over to Xchillerator.com today. There's no denying that stainless steel is the best material for brewing equipment, and Delta Brewing Systems offers some of the lowest prices on high-quality stainless gear, like the Firm Tank, which in addition to holding 8 gallons or 30 liters of wort, comes with a domed lid to even further reduce the chances of a messy blow-off. Plus, it can hold up to 4 psi of pressure for closed transfers. Delta Brewing Systems also has their own line of brew kettles, as well as one of the lowest priced all-in-one electric brewing systems out there, and their prices are shockingly low. If you're in the market for legit stainless gear that won't break the bank, do yourself a favor and head over to deltabrewingsystems.com today. Craftmaster Growlers takes traveling with and sharing beer to a new level. Made from heavy-duty stainless steel, Craftmaster Growlers are double-wall insulated and can keep beer cold for up to 8 hours. Unlike typical growlers, Craftmaster Growlers come with a swiveling tap and fully integrated CO2 regulator cap, allowing beer to stay fresh for 2 weeks or more. The square design takes up less space and will fit in most refrigerator doors, and every Craftmaster Growler comes with a 1-year warranty. There are 64 and 128-ounce versions available over at craftmastergrowlers.com. After a long brew day, the last thing I want to do is waste more time chilling wort. I've tried so many different options, and ultimately I settled on the super efficient immersion chillers made by Jaded Brewing. With the King Cobra and Hydra, I'm able to chill my entire batch of wort, from boiling to just a few degrees above groundwater temperature, in as little as 6 minutes. If an immersion chiller is right for your brewery, then do yourself a favor and check out all of the rad options Jaded Brewing has to offer at jadedbrewing.com. And be sure to let them know Brülosophy sent you. When I was younger, my aunt, who I lived with and was more like my mom, once told me that with every year of age, it feels like time goes by faster and faster. Well, as someone who's approaching 41 this year, I can say without hesitation that this has definitely been the case for me. I know it's cliche, but it really does feel like just yesterday that we were ringing in 2021. And yet when I stop to think about it, quite a bit has happened over the last year.
That's a really good, a good idiom from your aunt. I love that because it feels like it's true. I've often wondered if it's just because like you only have so much brain space, and so you just have to like start pushing things out after a while, and so it just feels like it goes faster and faster because you just can't remember shit anymore.
That's a good point. Or you're filling in all of those empty boxes, or those boxes that were empty there, and all the spots are getting taken on your brain shelves. Is how I think about it. And
yeah, exactly.
I was talking with my 12-year-old daughter this morning, and I kind of mentioned that to her, and she goes, yeah, it already feels like that for me. And I was like, girl, wait, you give it 30 more years. I mean, it really does start to feel like the years are turning into what used to feel like weeks, and they just pass by. Well, obviously 2021, we wouldn't be able to talk about this year if we didn't talk about COVID. We don't want to beat any dead horses or make this turn this into a contentious talk by any means, but it has had an impact on the homebrewing world, which we are a part of. So I think it's important for us to at least touch on, how this has affected us over the last year.
Yeah, I mean, I think I mentioned at the top of the show last year at the end of 2021, I was telling everybody, man, I'm so glad 2020 is over. Or at the end of 2020, I was telling everybody, I'm so glad this is over. We've got vaccines coming out. Everybody's about to get vaccinated. We're going to be back to normal. And here we are at the end of 2021. And I'm realizing that it's not the year. It's just I really wish this pandemic was over.
Oh, my God, dude. And that's the thing is like, I feel like unfortunately, something as global as COVID-19, as the pandemic, has become so overly freaking politicized that if you have an opinion or even just a thought on it, people are automatically going to point at you and accuse you of being in one camp or the other, or have this whole set of ideas that they're going to, put on you as a person just because you have an idea or you said something. So the nice thing about this show is we get to talk about it however we want to, and trust that our listeners know that we're not crazy. So I personally, I've all been, you've heard me talk about getting vaccinated. I'm totally vaxxed. I've got my booster. I am starting to get to this point in my own mental space where I'm like, when the fuck is this going to end? When are we going to be allowed to get back to normal? Or are we going to be stuck in this conspiratorial, thing where that some people are talking about, where it's like, 6 months from now, we've got another variant, and then there's another variant, and then there's another variant. Is this the new normal? And that freaks me out when I really start to think about it.
Oh man, it terrifies me too. I mean, I'm vaxxed and boosted as well. And I mean, I have a pregnant wife and a 3-year-old that can't get vaccinated. So, doing everything that we can to keep them safe and healthy. But man, yeah, it just feels like this isn't like, it just feels like we're just going to continue in this pattern, going forward, and kind of figure out, like you said, I mean, we've got Omicron now, and then where are we going to go from there? We're going to be in another 6 months, and we're going to be doing this, masking and social distancing and small groups and all that kind of stuff. But man, it's just really, it's, didn't impact Brülosophy as much as it could have, though, right? I mean, it did impact us. But man, I mean, I feel like, if you look back, I'm going to pat ourselves on the back here for just a minute. Like, we still released an experiment every single week without missing a week all the way through the pandemic, right?
I don't know how he did it. Bro. I mean, I know how he did it. It's because of the incredible group of contributors that we've got, dedicated to doing this thing that does not pay well. There's no huge benefits to doing this other than contributing to this thing that we love so much. The fact that I remember, I think we talked about this last year at the end of 2020 when it was March and we're starting to realize, holy cow, the whole country, the whole world really, but the entire country where all of the contributors live is going to be on lockdown. Well, we cannot continue operating the normal way that we do. Our whole thing is that we go out, we hang out with people, other brewers, beer drinkers, we collect data from them. We can't do that, like legally. There's no place to go. There's no way to do it. How are we going to weather this? And we came up with a way that is not ideal, but it's the best option that we could come up with. And I'll tell you, I'm so proud of this team for continuing to, I first off, to all those people who reached out to me to say that we were kind of this bright spot in their pandemic days because they had something to read, they had something to keep them interested, they had something to listen to. Thank you for letting us know that. Thank you for letting us be that, because I feel the same way. In a weird way, our ability to continue doing this thing, even though it's gone on way longer than we thought, gave us an outlet. At least that's how I feel, Cade, is that it gave us this thing to do that didn't constantly remind us of the craziness that was going on in the world.
Oh, totally. And for listeners out there, since this is a Brews Views episode, that was really intentional, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we were intentionally not trying to, talk about how COVID impacts us. I mean, that's not to say, we did change our protocols for reporting results of experiments and the actual testing that was done. But we weren't out there, I think we did one podcast episode on brewing and COVID. And I think, honestly, we did it a little too early. I think we did it in like April of 2020, right? Like 2 or 3, like maybe 6 weeks after whenever it first started. But anyway, it was really cool. And that was really important to everybody here, was to talk about the beer, right? Like, we're just talking about beer. We're still out there doing experiments. We're still testing these variables. We're doing, collecting data and reporting the results in a little bit different way because you have to. But here we are now in 2021, right? And so this was supposed to be, 2021 was supposed to be the year where we're like back to collecting data. And we have been a little bit, right? There's been a few episodes out there, but man, it's been hard to find tasters this year. That's been a struggle. So I've tried it a couple of times, right? COVID protocols just to single persons, just the contributor, right?
Yeah.
Doing 10 reps, using 4 cups, blind selection, all that to try to make sure it's randomized and that we're making it as controlled as possible. And that's really easy on contributors, right? Because you just do it at your house, But finding tasters, that has gotten really hard. There's a lot of people that aren't comfortable going out in groups anymore. If you look at like Oregon, where I live now, Oregon's 66% vaccinated. It's much higher in the counties where I live and in Portland, but people still just aren't wanting to go out in a group of 20 or 30 people. So this has been tough. I was looking forward to getting back to collecting data, but man, it's been really difficult to hit that 20 taster mark.
Yeah, and kudos to you, Cade, because you're one of the few contributors who's really made an effort to do that. Which, think of us what you will. I feel like our ability to access actual participants these days is somewhat contingent on where we live, the region that we're in, and how open those regions are, as well as our own personal decisions and I guess private health stuff. All of us, or you and me at least, Cade, and Paul here in Fresno, who manages the Hop Chronicles, we're all vaccinated, we're boosted, we're comfortable going out and being around other people at this point. We're relatively healthy. And, that's the risk that we're willing to take. I get that. When we go out, though, there are certain approaches that we take to collecting data. We're not just bombarding people like we used to. Hey, drink my beer, we're asking them, would you like to have some of this beer? And if they agree, they actually come to a separate area of the brewery that we go to, at least, to do that. So we're keeping kind of some distance there. And, we're trying to keep it as safe as possible. But I'm with you. I was fully convinced that by June of 2021 that we were going to be back to normal, and that has just not been the case. We just here in California got another government kind of mandated total state, like you have to wear your masks every time you go out now, and it's just this kind of like ebbing and flowing of regulation and restriction and all of this, and it's just I'm so bummed out. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't be doing that. I want to make sure people are as safe as possible, but we're being honest here. It sucks, So
yeah, that's been the hard part, right? It's like making sure that you're being respectful of other people, right? That's
exactly.
I feel like I don't know if I ever made this joke on the podcast, but I've said it a whole bunch of times. It's almost like talking about like your COVID, what you're comfortable with in terms of COVID is like sharing your sexual history with somebody, right? It's like you have to talk about like, I'm comfortable doing this. Are you comfortable doing this? And that's become like such a part of like collecting data. Like you said, it's like, hey, here's the cups. Nobody's going to be sharing cup. We never shared cups anyway, but we're not pouring. If you're pouring, make sure it's only one person pouring into the glasses.
Right.
You don't have to pass glasses around. You can pick them up, whatever you're comfortable with, right? But having that discussion now has sort of just changed everything and created this a barrier. It's not an insurmountable barrier, but it creates this like distance, right, between you and the people, which is just so hard. Like as the person that's out there like trying to get people interested in homebrewing and experiments and stuff. Yeah. If you're trying to be like, okay, well first we got to talk about this, or we have to just sort of see what everybody's comfortable with first before you start serving beers to people and talking about the results and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Well, so you mentioned a little bit about our COVID protocol for data collection, and again, just to kind of reiterate, it's the brewer is the most biased person, but he, if we can't go out and collect data from participants, you got to figure something out. So what we do is take 4 cups of the same color and mark the bottom of 2 of those cups. One of the beers goes into the 2 marked ones. The other beer goes into the 2 unmarked cups. Those get randomized and mixed up, and usually we'll have our wife, or with me, I've done it with the kids. You mix those up and then pick 3 of them and give them to me, and then we just try to tell which one is different. And it's easy enough to hide it because you don't know. You just know that there's 2 of the same beer, one that's different, but you don't even know which one is which. When you're done making your selection, you just look at the bottom of the cups and then mark down whether you got it right or wrong. And then we do that 10 times and run it through our binomial proportions test. Here's the thing about that. Yes, I agree with all of the naysayers out there who call us out every week for publishing that. And my typical response in my head is, well, you get what you get here, because I can't tell, for example, Phil, I don't know what all of his health history is. If he can't go out and collect data because maybe in New York they've stopped having non-virtual homebrew club meetings or live homebrew club meetings, where's he going to find tasters during this time? So we have to still be open to publishing that data. I hate it. I would far prefer actual participants, whatever, but we're doing the best we can. And I do have to, over the last 1.5 to 2 years since we've been doing this, I don't know. I think it's kind of interesting to see. We've talked about internally, what if we were to not keep tasters blind, right? What if we were to tell them what the variable is so that they, and what they might expect in the beer that's different, so that they might be able to kind of hone in on something very particular. Because when you don't know what you're expecting at all, it can be very difficult to notice nuance, right? Well, this has given us some, to me at least, it's shown that maybe not knowing or whether you know what the variable is or not may not have much of an impact on your ability to distinguish beers in a triangle test, because we've shown that in most of these COVID protocol experiments that we've done, which all, by the way, I believe all of them have been repeats of past experiments. It was a kind of a replication year for us, that the data for the most part matches what we've already done in the past with blind tasters. So to me, there is some value in it, besides the fact that people have something to read,
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a couple things there, right? I mean, one is the repeats, right? I mean, that's one of the things that people always bitch about, right? And it's a thing, right? We're just serving these beers. When we do an experiment, we're serving it to one group of people, usually somewhere between 20 or 30 people. So one group of 20 or 30 people, and we're trying to expand that out to, and we're saying like, hey, this is significant or it's not significant, right? We're running our binomial test, but it's really just one batch that's brewed with that variable served to 20 or 30 people. right? It's not like we're out there repeating the study 10 times or doing triplicate results or any of those kinds of things. So having repetition is a good thing, right? I mean, I would love to be able to just repeat all of the Brülosophy experiments, in triplicate every time we do it, but there's no way I can do that every single time. I just don't have the time or the money or the patience to do that on that scale. But it's meaningful, right? Like seeing this repeated and either seeing the results confirmed or not. I mean, to me, I don't really care. It's more just like, okay, again, these are pieces of data. If the original experiment came back non-significant, but the single taster came back significant, all that does to me is just say, okay, that's one dude that got it right, maybe more often than guessing. I mean, it could still be wrong. I mean, that's how p-values work. And we discussed that a little bit on a Brülab episode with Jordan Folks, who's a social scientist up in Portland, about p-values and significance. So that was a cool thing. You should go listen to that. But the other thing too that I like about this is, for me as a contributor, it's really, really confirmed when you're doing this 10 times, like it's really hard to keep bias when you're doing it like the 10th time, right? Because like I can tell you how many times I've done like, okay, here's 1, 2, 3, and I got them all right. Oh, it's clearly this thing. And then you get 3 through 10 wrong, right? And it's like, no, that like, okay, crap. Like that was just not what I thought it was. And so you've got this sort of confirmation bias, like while you're tasting it, in the test too, and so this is something that has also helped me is like, as a contributor and as a person that's tasting these beers, you sort of start, I sort of have to, I have more respect for, when a result actually comes back significant, because it is really hard to on some of these variables. Like, I mean, I think about like, what was one? Oh, like Star Sand versus iodophore. That one we had tasters, right? And that was one that I did this year up in Portland and here in Corvallis. We had 30 tasters and it came back non-significant, but the P was 0.07. So it was like 1 or 2 tasters away from being significant. Again, that's not how statistics works, but but like I think about that, and whenever I tried that myself, like I couldn't taste those beers apart, but there were people who were super convinced that iodophore beer was bitter. And I think we've talked about that, on the show and on the podcast episode. But that's just like another good example of, if I was the one doing it 10 times, I wouldn't have been able to taste a difference, but certain people think that they did.
Yeah.
So,
this is a good segue into talking about the thing that we haven't talked about in a while, which is the hate that we sometimes get for doing this thing that we do. Most of it being motivated by this completely false belief that when we publish a result, we're saying, look, here's some element of truth. Take it from us. We are not doing that. That has never been our goal. We have always owned that we are doing a hopefully informative but also entertaining version of sensory analysis, and that is it. You can take and make of our data whatever you want. We are not sitting here trying to sell some new truth like some out there like to do. That is not our goal. It's not our aim. It never has been. It never will be. But I will say this, and maybe this makes me sound a little bit arrogant. I don't know. But I would argue that even our COVID protocol data is at least marginally more, believable to me than somebody sitting down, comparing 2 beers, having brewed them exactly, both of them, knowing everything about them, and then telling you exactly what's different about them. I mean, we have bias. We know that. I've studied this for over 2 decades at this point. The perception is fickle. It is going to be influenced by what you know. And we do our best, right, to try to cancel that piece of it out. And then we just share the data without anything else, without any encouragement that you should change your brewing process or whatever it is. And so to me, I feel good knowing that we are not doing this thing that some presume that we're trying to do. And I always have to bite my tongue and just ignore the people who, it's always on Reddit, by the way. I think anonymity breeds people being little shits, but we're providing something that we enjoy because we know other people enjoy it. And I'll tell you, based on stats for this year, we're still getting quite a few people who enjoy reading this stuff and at least value the entertainment aspect of it, I would imagine. But hopefully some information out of our experiments as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing that's certainly something that I've changed in 2021 is I used to be a lot more apologetic about Brülosophy experiments, saying like, yeah, it's just one result, take for it what you will, all that kind of stuff. But I've sort of started to look at the people that are saying like, oh, this isn't science. It's just some guy in a garage doing a homebrew experiment. Yeah, I mean, kind of. It is a guy in a garage doing it, but we're serving it to tasters. And even when we're not, during COVID protocol, you're still doing it 10 times in a triangle test and trying to be blind and trying to eliminate bias. So these are scientific results, okay? And I'll fight anybody that says that they're not. Maybe not in a fist fight, but
yeah. And honestly, if you want to go define science some other way so that it negates the work that we're putting into this, and we do not try to get. I feel like we don't get overly defensive very often. We are making ourselves almost crazy with how controlled we attempt to keep these things. Somebody just did a TBC experiment for the Brew Club experiment series. And, I'm helping him write his article and get everything together. And when we got it published, and that day he shoots me a long email and he's like, I cannot believe how difficult that was. How, what you guys go through to keep this controlled. And mind you, that's the Brew Club. We have a way more flexibility. I mean, you used to be a part of the Brew Club as somebody who would contribute experiments. Mm-hmm. You know the difference, Cade. We are nuts about this stuff. We really do want to provide as valid information as we possibly can. So when people just poo-poo it, there's a part of me that's like, whatever. They don't know, and that's okay. It's not our point to convince everyone to to like us, I guess.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I'm not out there looking for fans doing this. I'm doing this because I love beer and I love the science of it. And I think, again, like taking this back to like 2021, I feel like at least I hope that people are looking at this and going, yeah, I'm glad that this isn't, or hasn't been impacted, right? I mean, understanding the COVID protocol, we're still out there publishing experiments, right? We're still out there publishing the sensory results that we're having for testing these brewing variables. And I think that's powerful. And I'm really proud of the body of work that we've done. I mean, I was just looking at it, in terms of content that Brülosophy puts out, right? Every single Monday is an experiment article. Every Tuesday is the Brülosophy podcast. Wednesday, the Brew Lab comes out. Thursday, you've got an article like a Brew It Yourself or a Short and Shoddy series or Hop Chronicles. You're actually getting 2 Hop Chronicles a month now. The only day of the week that we don't publish things on is Friday.
We need a break somewhere, right?
I don't know. Maybe we need to find something to put on Friday, and then maybe people would be happier. And the biggest thing too, everybody's getting this content totally for free, right? I mean, and I love that. I love not making people pay for this content. It's not you don't have to have a magazine subscription. You're not, limited to, a paywall for articles or results or anything like that. It's all right there, 100% published, 100% out in the open. There's a podcast to talk about it, 2 podcasts now to talk about it, and all of this articles and all these content. So, amidst whatever we were having in terms of the pandemic, 2020 carrying into 2021, I'm still really proud of all the work that we've done. Yeah,
I agree. And you mentioned it earlier that we have published. We have not missed a single experiment on a Monday in, I believe it's 4.5 years now. That's crazy. Just this year alone, in 2021, we've published over 100 articles. Now, as your measly little homebrew blog, if you want to call us that, 100 articles. That's pretty impressive if you ask me. Half of which have been experiments, but the other half of which have been kind of a smattering of different projects that we do. Like you mentioned, Cade, we have really worked hard to publish 2 Hop Chronicles articles per month. We did get back to doing that at the beginning of 2021. We had to take a hiatus from that because we could not figure out a good way to do the Hop Chronicles without collecting data from tasters. And so we put the pause on that, and we did some other stuff in place of the Hop Chronicles. But at the beginning of 2021, we got back to doing the Hop Chronicles. We've fairly consistently done a couple of those per month. This month in December, we had to skip one because Paul Amico, who is our Hop Chronicles brewer, he's actually brewing a batch right now. He had a little COVID scare. He's vaxxed and boosted and all that stuff, but he started to get symptoms. Well, there's a cold going around, but he was kind of freaked out, didn't want to go put himself at risk or put other people at risk either. And so he wasn't able to collect data on that one in time, but still, for the most part, 2 Hop Chronicles per month, a short and shoddy, which people surprisingly love that series. I get a lot of good feedback on that. Brew it yourself, which is kind of our basic, we just had a fun idea for a batch and here's what we did series. We don't do very many product reviews, but occasionally we'll publish a review of some product that we're using, or we'll publish somebody else's guest article that we think is valuable. Every single Thursday, every single Monday, you've had an article drop that at least gave you 2 minutes of entertainment. I hope so.
Yeah, exactly, right. And in the year of COVID, I mean, that's been great, right? Like, it's been a constant, and that's one of the things again that I liked is this is all about the beer and all about improving, the science, and still, I mean, it doesn't. I mean, at least I'm not planning on cutting back anytime soon. Brülosophy is not planning on going anywhere, so continuing on 2022, 2023, 20 whenever, we're gonna keep publishing this content, which to me is daunting a little bit.
A little bit daunting, yeah.
Probably more daunting for you because you're the one that has to edit all of it and put it all together and manage. But still, but that's cool to think about, like being a part of something like this and contributing and continuing to contribute to moving the ball forward with homebrewing. And I love that, getting people interested in homebrewing. But that's another thing that I've come to appreciate and respect is also the overlap with commercial brewing, right? Like, we're not just a little homebrewing blog. I mean, these results are used by brewers in their brewery, and even by big breweries, right? Like, I'm talking like Anheuser-Busch, Miller Coors. Even those people are looking at this and using it as evidence, not necessarily citing it in journal papers. I mean, I'm not talking about that, but looking at it, going, hey, we had this issue with hops, like we just talked about at the beginning of the show in the feedback, right? We had this issue where we're getting hoppy beers, our hoppiness is being stripped out of the beer. Well, here's Brülosophy. They've done a bunch of tests on cold side oxidation. Here's a couple of academic journals that have looked at cold side oxidation. Maybe this is something we should look at. And that's pretty cool, right? I mean, I like that. And I love, in 2021 especially, having gotten way more involved in the commercial side of things, but also staying true and staying home with the homebrewers as well.
Yeah. There are people that we don't talk very much about our I guess, influence on or the whatever it is when it comes to commercial brewing, and particularly as with bigger brewers. The reality is I hear from commercial breweries all the time, and I don't talk about them. I don't want that to become an issue or something of focus. But I get questions, or I'll read, I'll find forum posts from people who are like, oh, no brewer, no real brewer would ever pay attention to what we're doing. Well, they do. I don't, it's okay that you think that. And if it makes you feel good to post your opinions online, then keep doing it. It doesn't bother me at all. Well, I do want to say before we wrap up talking about the website, we do keep, obviously what keeps this content free for you is the support of our sponsors. And John Haas has been one of the best sponsors we've ever had. Same with Imperial Yeast. If it weren't for Imperial Yeast giving us yeast to use for every experiment that we publish, you guys wouldn't have the experiments to the number of them that you do that you get to read, because we're blowing through their yeast constantly, and they love what we're doing, and we appreciate them as much as they appreciate us. Same with John Haas. If you guys haven't checked out their website yet, you have to go check it out. Click on the link, read about Sabro hops, read about Lupamax. Let them know that you appreciate their support of us, because if it weren't for them, it would be much more difficult for us to keep up doing what it is that we're doing. I mean, running a website like this that gets millions of views is not cheap. You have to pay for server space. I'm constantly upgrading. I'm constantly having to go, and I'm sure every single one of you has encountered our site being down. That is because it's getting bombarded with views. I mean, there's a reason for that, and as happy as we are for that, it costs money. And so to have the support of such big names like Haas and Imperial Yeast and Yakima Valley Hops and all of these wonderful companies, we really do appreciate it. And we hope you guys understand that we have very intentionally chosen to work with companies that we actually believe in. We've chosen to stay away from any other type of advertising with stuff that we don't think is of value to the people who are reading our website. So thanks to Haas, thanks to Imperial Yeast, Yakima Valley Hops, all those wonderful companies for helping us out. We do have to get to another quick break. More talk of our views on 2021 when we return. The brew in a bag method has blown up over the last few years, and in that time, it's become very clear that not all bags are created equal. For the best BIAB experience, you have got to go with the brew bag. Made from high-quality, food-safe polyester, the brew bag is available in both 210 micron for standard brew in a bag, as well as 400 micron, which works beautifully for all-in-one recirculating systems. I've been a brew bag user for years and wouldn't brew without it. Head over to brewinabag.com to get the fabric filter that works for you and use promo code TBP17 at checkout to receive a discount. Again, that's brewinabag.com. Family-owned Atlantic Brew Supply is the largest homebrew shop in the Southeast. No gimmicks, no multinational corporate overlords, and no BS. They offer exclusive malts, yeast, and more from local artisans, as well as award-winning recipe kits. They also sell professional brewing gear and cask equipment from sister companies ABS Commercial and Cask Supply. Most ingredients are available by the ounce, plus Atlantic Brew Supply has an on-site calculator to help you craft your best brew. Orders are processed same day, and 2-day shipping is guaranteed for East Coast customers. Get 15% off your first order using promo code BREWPOD. That's BRUPOD at AtlanticBrewSupply.com. As every brewer knows, the best beer requires the best hops, which Yakima Valley Hops provides fresh from the source to brewers around the world, carrying everything from classics like Cascade to modern favorites like Galaxy and Mosaic, as well as other ingredients and gear. Yakima Valley Hops has it all. And don't forget to check out their new podcast, The Late Edition, where the YVH crew goes into depth on our favorite plant with industry experts. Head over to YakimaValleyHops.com now to see all they have to offer and subscribe to The Late Edition wherever it is you listen to podcasts.
Compact and simple to use with a small footprint for brewing indoors, the Grainfather makes it easy for you to brew professional quality beers at home. The Grainfather is an all-in-one brewing system that lets you brew all-grain beer in a single, compact stainless steel unit. It uses an electric heating element and pump to maintain a constant temperature and to circulate the wort during the mashing and cooling stages. It also comes with a counterflow chiller to reduce chilling times and produce high-quality wort. And now, with the addition of their conical fermenter, the Grainfather takes things one step further by offering homebrewers state-of-the-art temperature-controlled fermentation just like commercial breweries use. And with the Grainfather Recipe Creator and Connect app, you can easily design a recipe, sync your brewing system with your phone, and then just sit back and relax as the app takes over and assures that you maintain your scheduled mash temps and boil schedule. Head to Grainfather.com to purchase your all-in-one brewing system today and to sign up for their free recipe creator tool. Once more, head on over to Grainfather.com, that's Grainfather.com, and get started today.
I'll never forget when a couple other contributors first brought up the idea of starting a podcast. It was 2015. Brülosophy had been around for a little bit over a year at the time, and I was absolutely against taking on any more responsibility. A couple years later, with additional contributors on board and at least somewhat more organization, we took the leap and started this show, the Brülosophy podcast. That was nearly 4 years ago, during which we have dropped, this is nuts, 217 episodes. Whew. You think about it, right? If you've ever run a website that publishes even one article per month, plus a once-a-week podcast, you know how much time and energy it requires. I'm not looking for back pats. I'm not looking for sympathy. It is a lot of time and a lot of work. Cade, I know you can relate now that you're doing the Brew Lab. And again, I am not complaining, but man, I'm just shocked that we've been able to keep up with it. I know we talked about it with the website earlier. This section, we're going to talk a little bit more about the podcasts. The Brülosophy podcast. This was, so when we started, our idea for the Brülosophy podcast was we've got all of this content on the website, but there is a big chunk of people out there. We've actually read surveys on this. There's a big chunk of people out there who far prefer listening to their information than they do reading it on the internet. You're driving in your car, you want to throw a podcast on, you're flying on an airplane, whatever it might be. And so our idea was, well, why don't, rather than trying to come up with brand new content, why don't we just go back to stuff we've already published, kind of freshen it up a little bit and talk about it on the show? And that has worked incredibly well for us to be able to go back, pick an experiment that we did 6 years ago, right? And then pull it back, make it live again, talk about it. I think it's been really fun. I love recording episodes of the podcast because of that reason. It's just cool to kind of reminisce about those old days, but also talk about how, we've been influenced by that data, stuff like that. Now, during COVID, the one area I wasn't terribly stressed about was the podcast because we already had that trove of articles out there that we could just pluck up and talk about on the show. So we have done surprisingly well. I won't get too much into numbers, but this show alone, I mean, we're averaging anywhere between 95,000 and 100,000 downloads per month. That is just crazy to me. That's a lot of people out there who are listening to our voices, Cade.
That's nuts, right? I mean, I don't even know that there's 95 or 100,000 homebrewers, right? I mean, surely there are. There's more than that. I mean, clearly there are, right? It's a big country, but damn, I mean, that's impressive. And to hear you say that, been doing this for 4 years, 217 episodes. I mean, that was a lot of that. I guess maybe not a lot of it, over half of it at least. Was before me, right? Before I even got on here. So I mean, that was you and some of the old guard, like right, Ray and Brian and Jake and some of those guys that were Matt Del Fiacco, out here, sort of pioneering those things, and that's what inspired me to get involved was the Brülosophy podcast. But the cool part of the podcast for me is and has always been it's peeling back the curtain, right?
Yeah.
It's looking behind the scenes, and that's what you get to go into when you talk about something for an hour, right? If you're writing it and publishing it on a website, you don't get to talk about why. I mean, you get to talk about a little bit of why, but you don't get to spend time, explaining here's why we did this way with Star Sand versus Iota 4, right? Like, I mean, how many times did we say on that episode, from the time that the boil was done, every piece of equipment, every, gasket, line, connector, everything was sanitized with one or the other.
Yeah.
That's just kind of fun stuff that you don't get to talk about on the website. You can say that, but that's just one sentence on the website, but it's super important to the actual experiment. But that's what's been cool for me is peeling back behind the curtains. And, we'll talk about the Brew Lab in a minute, but that's one of the consistent feedback that I get from the Brew Lab is they love hearing about how the scientists came up with the idea for the research.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where you get to go into, on the podcast, you get to spend time talking about these issues like boil temperature or, which sanitizer to use or biotransformation or any of these other, sort of hot topics in brewing. And we get to talk about them, do an experiment on it and then, and share our results, which I think is really cool. And that to me is one of the things, again, I'm really proud about for 2021, that nothing interrupted the Brülosophy podcast, right? It was just so steady and so constant during and has been through the pandemic. The only thing that was sad was the loss of Jersey to Oklahoma.
Oh, I know. Jeez. I was thinking the same thing. Well, and we didn't mention it in the last segment. Maybe we should have, but over the last year and a half or so, naturally, because of family issues or job changes or whatever it may be, the Brülosophy contributor group has changed as well. Not only did we lose Malcolm, he's now, we still consider him a homie. He'll always be a part of the Brülosophy family. Same with Brian Hall and Matt Del Fiacco. And I guess Jason was kind of maybe late 2020, Jason Cipriani, but it's kind of this evolving thing. And in their place, we brought on some incredibly awesome new contributors, Mike Neville and Steve Thanos, who are just killing it, and again, these are two new guys who are absolutely dedicated to wanting to see home brewing grow and be the best it can possibly be, and their way of doing that is by contributing in the best way that they know how through Brülosophy, and I just love that, But yes, seeing Jersey go, boy, that was one of the toughest parts on an emotional level. He was one of my best friends in town, still is one of my best friends. It's not like we don't talk anymore. We were chatting yesterday, but having him go was hard for me on a personal level. It was hard for me on a Brülosophy level, and I know that a lot of you listeners out there, believe me, I've gotten your emails. It was a bummer for you as well. But I have to say, Justin has been so much fun to see review these beers. We were talking earlier about his ability to nail Gosa. Absolutely surprising to me. The guy doesn't drink Gosa. I know that, but he's been so much fun to have do this. And I know that Jersey supported bringing him on as well. So,
well, yeah. And that's such a big part of the podcast, the Brülosophy podcast. I know some people hate it, but it's just, it's
that's part
so
of what
funny.
Makes it fun.
Right. and I mean, it was explained to me really well too. I listened to Neil deGrasse Tyson's Star Talk podcast occasionally, and there's always a comedian that's on with him, and they ask like, Neil, why do you have a comedian on the podcast with you? And he says, because you learn better when it's fun, right? Whenever you're making jokes or whenever it's fun, you retain the information a little bit more, and that's what I love about. I mean, Justin is like totally filled in, right? Like it's been seamless in my opinion. And not to replace Jersey. Jersey is unreplaceable. I'm not trying to like slam him, but I'm just saying like, hey, I mean, Justin did really fit in here, and it's perfect. I mean, you and I talked about whenever we were talking about setting up the Brew Lab. I mean, I was mentioning like, hey, are we going to do something like Jersey and Tim for the Brew Lab? I mean, that's going to be really tough to find. I mean, my friends aren't as funny as those people. That's not to say that my friends aren't bad. They're just not comedians. But it was really cool to see Justin sort of step in on that. And yeah, bringing on the new contributors, it's been fun. It actually just occurred to me, I don't know why I've never thought of this before, but if Steve doesn't have a Thanos did nothing wrong mug, he's a high school teacher, so he needs to have that on his desk like at all times.
I have to imagine he gets a lot of Thanos jokes thrown
I'm sure he does. Yeah, I'm sure he does. He probably doesn't appreciate me doing it on the air either, but
I doubt he cares. That's pretty cool, actually, if you ask me. I was thinking about when we started the Brülosophy podcast and how I'm kind of a control freak. I want to make sure the sound quality is good. I want to make sure we have the show organized such that people don't feel lost when they're listening to it. It's kind of predictable. And so that's what took us so long before I felt comfortable doing this whole thing back in 2017. Well, I'm looking back going, geez, if I can open up, my show notes document, my template, and look at it, and it's just this organized thing that I'm still very comfortable with. Everything from, feedback, and again, the Jersey and Tim beer review, and the way that we do that. It's just so weird to think back, 4 or 5 years ago when we were planning this whole thing and to see it kind of come to fruition. Such an odd experience for me, kind of on an existential level, I guess. But
well, I mean, you're talking to me about it, right? I mean, we've been doing the exact same thing with the Brew Lab, and I know exactly what you feel like there.
Yeah. Well, some cool stuff. There's a really neat website called Chartable, and I was poking around there. And one of our main, I don't know why we did it differently for the Brew Lab, but the Brülosophy podcast, our main category is hobbies. Cause I figured, brewing is a hobby, whatever. And we are consistently ranked in the top 25 most popular hobbies podcasts in Apple Podcasts, which is just nuts to me. Absolutely nuts to me that we could consistently be ranked in the top 25 of hundreds of thousands of hobbies podcasts. So thank you guys for getting us to that point. We're nearing 900 reviews in Apple Podcasts with a 4.8, 4.9 star average. What the heck? That's just nuts to me. You guys are awesome out there for doing those. But help get us to that 1,000 mark. It'll make us feel good. But boy, what validation I feel. That what we're doing is at least good and acceptable to a large proportion of the people who are listening.
Yeah, for sure. Right. I mean, I love hearing from people, I mean, it's people think, I mean, I don't know, maybe you do think that we read the feedback, because we do. It's just always my impression that people don't think that we read it, or if if I just leave a review, they're never going to hear about it. No, I read every single piece of feedback, especially on the Brew Lab, not on the Brülosophy podcast. But I read every single piece of feedback and every email that comes in that says, hey, you need to, improve this or improve that. But, the biggest change for me as a contributor in 2021 in the podcast has been this little guy.
You're giving away our secrets, Cade.
Hey man, I'm doing it. But this was the biggest. So that was a clicker, and Marshall started doing that this year on the podcast because it makes editing easier for him, right? If we screw something up on the podcast, he can go through and he hears that clicker and it's really annoying, and he knows exactly, okay, I need to fix this and edit it. But that thing, man, as the clicker, as the guest, or as the person that's talking along on the other side, that thing was so distracting for a while. It took me a little while to get used to it. That's been the biggest change for me for this year in 2021 on the Brülosophy podcast, is the addition of that clicker. But I have started using it myself.
Well, I'm glad something so trivial is the biggest thing for you, Cade, because that and actually that speaks to where we're at with the Brülosophy podcast. We are very fortunate to have the listener base that we do, and one of the things that I think that really made was really helpful about having that base established is that when we decided to do the Brew Lab, which I want to talk about kind of the lead up to the Brew Lab and your whole experience with it so far, but we had to rely on the Brülosophy podcast and the Brülosophy.com website to gain the listeners for your show, the Brew Lab. Now, Cade, before we start talking about where that has gone, where we're at now in late 2021, let's talk a little bit about the process for you to take this on, because I think a lot of people think that, it's just a podcast. You sit down, you blow hard into a microphone for a little bit, and then you publish it, and that's all a podcast is. But that is not necessarily the case.
Yeah, I wish. I mean, it's not even the case for the Brülosophy podcast, where you've already got the content created, right? You've got the website, which is funneling the episodes for the podcast. It's the process is interesting, and I'm glad you bring this up too, because it takes a while. It takes a lot of effort to put together this stuff. I mean, even experiments on the website. If you think about the amount of time it takes you to brew the beer, right? That's 5 or 6 hours on a day. Then you have to keg it and get it ready for serving. Then you've got to go and serve it to tasters. Then you have to write the article. Then the article gets edited and it gets published, and you engage with people on and off about that. That takes a lot of time. And for the podcast, it takes a long time too. I mean, I know when I'm planning for the Brülosophy podcast, it's at least an hour and a half or 2 hours for every episode.
Easy.
In addition to having most of the time written the article and performed the experiment, right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that's every single episode. It just starts to add up. But yeah, then you get into something like the Brew Lab, where it's now, it's not a contributor like, us that's willing to work on like a Saturday or a Sunday or an evening to record the podcast. These people are actual scientists. So like they're working their 9-to-5 job. And so having, getting them on is scheduled for an interview during the week, whenever I also am working and doing things and having child responsibilities and school and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, it's tough. It's hard work to get all of this done, and to I remember this too, because whenever I first pitched this idea, I first suggested this to Marshall. I said, maybe we should do like one episode like a quarter, or like one episode every month, or like every couple months. And Marshall was like, no, we're not doing that. and it wasn't just to be a jerk. It was because no, I mean, if we're gonna do this, we need to do it right. We need the content. It needs to be weekly. People will enjoy it. Trust me, right? I think they're really gonna like this. And I was like, I don't know if I can do every single week on this. And here we are 10 months later, 44 episodes in, and holy shit, I mean, I just said we're in 44 episodes in. I honestly can't believe it.
Yeah, I think at this point we've published 42 episodes, but you have recorded 44 interviews. I remember when you proposed the idea of the Brew Lab to me, it didn't have a name yet, and the idea was I want to interview actual beer experts, scientists, researchers on the work that they've done, not only to give them some exposure, because that is incredibly important work that they're doing, but again, to kind of pull back the curtains, see what their thought process was going into this, and then to share some fascinating findings that people may not have access to otherwise. I loved the idea, and I think my first comment was, you're going to do an interview-based podcast. That requires reaching out to people, scheduling interview appointments, actually completing the interview, and then all of the editing and everything to get it together, and trying to make it sound as good as possible. And it was daunting at first. I think you and I both agreed, but we were very motivated to get it off the ground. And dude, I'm telling you, it's not my show, so I can say this without sounding cocky. It is one of the coolest brewing-related podcasts that I listen to these days.
Oh, thanks, man.
And it's absolutely fascinating. As the guy, so I sit here and I edit every single one of those episodes, and then I go and I listen to them on my way to work the next day. So I basically hear the information twice, and it's fascinating. The stuff that is in just the information that's contained in the minds of the people that you're interviewing is just so good for brewers, man.
Yeah, and I mean, and like you said, that was sort of the whole impetus, right? Was to talk to scientists. I mean, the first episode was Tom Shellhammer talking about the dry hop saturation point, or diminishing returns from increased dry hopping rates. And that was an experiment that we had done on Brülosophy. Got a lot of buzz a couple of years ago, from a guest post that was on Brülosophy, and it was just cool to talk to Dr. Shellhammer and peel back the curtains. But what I've also started to realize, and this is, listeners of the podcast may have seen this transition over the years, is that, hey, it's more than just scientists out there doing research. You don't have to have a PhD or a master's degree in order to do research. I mean, one of the episodes that we've gotten the most feedback on, and I think it's a listener favorite, is that oxidation episode with Andy Mitchell, where from New Belgium, where we're just sitting there. I was just shooting the shit with Andy, talking about oxidation and all the things that New Belgium has done to try to prevent oxygenation in their beers. And, that was just a fun thing. I mean, we talked about the experiments that they did. We talked about how they designed it and set it up. We talked about oxidation, and that's been what's really cool to see the podcast sort of develop. I mean, you were talking about earlier when designing the Brülosophy podcast, it takes a little bit to sort of get your sea legs and be able to produce a good show. But then, I mean, that's cool. I'm glad you're listening to the show, and I hope other people are out there. And I hope one of the early feedback I got too was that it was a little too heady, maybe a little bit too scientific and technical. So I hope more of the recent episodes have been more approachable for most people. But again, I'm not trying to dumb anything down, and I don't think it needs to be dumbed down. It's just trying to get good information out there to people. But this allows us to dig a little bit deeper into what's been published and what scientists are actually looking and thinking about researching, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I feel like you do a disservice to the brewing community, and when this, I'll tell you, the Brew Lab for a fact is getting a lot of commercial brewers out there listening, because the researchers that you're interviewing is the very research that influences them. It's just exactly what the stuff that they're looking for, and so by dumbing it down or by not focusing on the deeper part of it, that's a part of what the Brew Lab is known for, is being a little bit headier, going a little bit deeper. And if you're going to leave a 1-star review because you didn't understand a couple of words that were used, well, again, you do you. But man, I'll tell you, we've been lucky. When I started the Brülosophy podcast, Brülosophy.com was well established. We had a very, very large, readership and followers there who had been begging for a podcast. And so we hit the ground running pretty quickly. The Brew Lab, with the backing of the Brülosophy podcast and the website, did the same exact thing. And I mean, with just 42 episodes published, averaging nearly usually over 20,000 downloads per month, and every month that growing quicker and quicker, because as more and more, you get more and more exposure, more people are going to listen. That is just phenomenal, and people are really loving this show. I think you got an average rating right now on Apple Podcast of 4.8, with like 60 or so reviews. I honestly don't think we were anywhere near that. That number of reviews at just 10 months in with the Brülosophy podcast. So good job, man. I mean, it's a great show.
well, thanks. But I mean, you make a good point, right? Like it's because of the brand, the name Brülosophy, right? That this was able to take off. I mean, it's why, I think it's why people listened to it initially, and maybe why it had a little bit of running legs, more than the Brülosophy podcast did, because Brülosophy, the website, has such a strong reputation, right? I mean, there are people that dislike it, and I get that, and that's fine. But for the most part, we're out there doing actual science, right? And people are using this information. Now, again, it bears repeating, we're not saying, treat it as gospel. We're just saying, hey, it's evidence, it's science out there. The same way you read any other, online blog or homebrew talk or anything else, you read Brülosophy, or you really read the ASBC or the MBA ATQ or any of those things. And that was cool, right? Like that's been awesome to be able to use that. But I also wanted to stay true to Brülosophy, right? So that's what, so a lot of the Brew Lab is sort of modeled after the podcast in a way, where we talk about that first, is part with the interviewer is discussing the background science, right? Like, if we're talking about oxidation, we're going to spend, the first, 25, 30 minutes of the show talking about oxidation. And that was cool too. I mean, I wanted to keep that consistent, and we have. I mean, that's what I think is really cool. We've got these two podcasts, which are super complementary, You've got the Brülosophy podcast talking about an actual experiment that we're doing. and talking about our understanding of the science. And then, you can go and talk to a scientist who's maybe done similar or an extension of that research, and get their behind the scenes thought, which I just think is really cool. And I'm glad people are finding it interesting.
Well, I'll tell you, we decided when you and I were working together to get this thing off the ground, we decided to make the primary category for the Brew Lab food, which you'll see a lot of homebrewing podcasts do. We were looking at Chartable just recently, Cade, you and I think you were looking at it because you're looking for some stats to share with Tom Shellhammer, who's your advisor now, I believe. And I couldn't. So the food category is far bigger than the hobbies category. It's huge. And the Brew Lab, this new 10-month-old nerdy beer related science podcast, is consistently in the top 50 of all food-based podcasts in Apple Podcasts. I mean, you go and look at Chartable and you scroll through and see some of the other podcasts that are out there. You're like, well, that makes sense. Top 50, the Brew Lab. I mean, that is just phenomenal. I'm proud of you, Cade, for the work that you put into this. And I don't care what people think we're actually doing behind the scenes. We work our asses off to produce this content. You're now a part of that understanding group of how hard it can be to consistently produce a podcast when you've got vacations coming up and you work a regular day job or you go to school like you do. And yet you find the time, you make yourself sit down and put 6 hours per episode of planning and interviewing and editing and everything that comes with it to push this out there. The fact that we've got these two is crazy to me, and you're just slaying it.
Yeah, I mean, the one of the coolest things that happened to me was just a couple of weeks ago. I emailed the scientist that's over in England, and Selena, I don't know how to say her last name, Degulin, I think is how you say it. But anyway, she's going to do an episode with me here in January. And I said, hey, would you be interested in coming on the podcast? And she said, hey, yeah, I've listened to that. I would love to. And I was like, badass.
Cool. I know.
That's really cool that this person is actually listening to the podcast. Like, this is a scientist that's done research on green malt. And so I think that's going to be a lot of fun coming up in a couple weeks to tease that sort of episode out. But it's cool, right? And this is all, I hope this doesn't sound, too like gushy or anything, but it also has a fantastic producer, right? Because I have no fucking clue how to do any of the audio editing or make it sound good or piece things together like you do. So I really do appreciate your work on that as well, Marshall.
Oh, I appreciate that, Cade. Well, the part, again, we're talking about 2021. And as we talk about both of these podcasts, the Brülosophy podcast, the big thing was we kept it going. And thankfully it wasn't terribly stressful to keep it going. We made the crazy decision to create a new podcast in 2021. So some might look at that and think that, oh yeah, it makes sense. You got nothing better to do. No, we're busy people. We have normal jobs with normal families and kids and all of that stuff. And so over the last 10 months, I believe we dropped our first episode maybe in early March, late February, something like that, of the Brew Lab. And it's been consistent. It's been great. What has your overall experience been like with it, Cade?
Oh, I mean, I love it. I love doing it, right? I mean, that was part of the impetus of doing this in the first place was, hey, I'm doing this as a career, right? I'm going to go and become a brewing scientist. It would be really cool if I could review some of these papers and then interview people and sort of marry these two things together, right? Yeah. Marry my love of Brülosophy with interviewing scientists. So, I mean, it's been awesome. No plans to stop anytime soon. And I mean, I'm looking forward to the 217th episode of the Brew Lab.
Got a couple years to go.
Yeah, in a few years, right? Hopefully, we're still doing it by then. But I'd love to, and I think it's good, But I will say one of the things that keeps us motivated and keeps us going on this is you mentioned the patrons in the first segment, and you didn't plan on me saying this here, so I'm just sort of going off the cuff. But I want to say thank you to the patrons too, because I've heard from a bunch of people who are patrons who listen to the Brew Lab, and again, those are the people who got this thing started and got this going. And the Brew Lab wouldn't have done half of what it's done so far without those people. So I really thank you for all the patrons for being a part and listening to this podcast too.
Yeah, I'm gonna spend a minute talking about our patrons as well. And I don't want to be too gushy, but we have phenomenal sponsors. We've got if you're a potential sponsor out there who would like to get some exposure, we've got some openings on the Brew Lab. Reach out to me, Marshall@brülosophy.com. I would love to work with you. Same as the website. We have very intentionally stuck with people that we want to promote. Now, yes, there is an exchange of revenue, and that is because these things cost money. Time is money. Server space costs money. All of that stuff. But I will tell you, for as wonderful as our sponsors are, we could not do this without them. But the other half of that is our patrons. And I'll tell you, we have got some of the coolest people supporting us over at patreon.com for relatively paltry rewards, if you ask me. But they're giving us a small amount of money every month. But that's hard-earned money that they are using to support us so that we can keep doing what we're doing. And like you said, Cade, if it weren't for Patreon and the support that we get through that, we could not do what we continue to do the way that we do it. I guarantee you there's no way we'd be publishing 2 articles and 2 podcast episodes every single week. So to our patrons, thank you. To those who have maybe considered supporting us through Patreon, but you just don't know, I would like to go over what the reward tiers are. We may make some changes to the rewards at some point. We're always open to listening to our patrons if they have ideas. For just $1 a month, you get access to an unpublished contributor recipe, as well as an invite to a private Facebook group and subreddit where it's just for patrons to talk, people who support us. And then for every tier that you go up, you get the reward from the tier below it as well. So at $3 per month, you get all the $1 stuff, plus access to a monthly live Q&A session with somebody in the brewing world. This has been so fun. I mean, $3 a month, like I said, that's $36 a year. And every month you get to hang out for an hour with somebody who you've probably heard of, whether that's some commercial brewer or somebody else in the home brewing world, an author, a blogger, to ask them questions, to hear their experience and to get their perspective. As a people person like me, I love that stuff. So I watch every single one of these things. For $5 a month, you get a unique monthly discount to Yakima Valley hops. That is always worth more than $5 per month. Just a couple months ago, they're always giving hop discounts, but sometimes they'll give discounts off of clothes and they kind of fancy themselves quite trendy when it comes to the clothing that they sell. So that's always a cool discount. But man, if you can get $5 off per pound of a brand new fresh hop that they're selling, and you can buy up to 5 or 6 pounds of it, put that together. That's $30 that you're saving for supporting this thing that you like. So I think it's a pretty cool deal. At $10 a month, you get an invite to a monthly video chat with the Brülosophy crew. And then for $15 a month, you get private consultation pretty much as you want with a Brülosophy contributor. And then for $25 a month, you get to work with Brülosophy to design your very own experiment and then receive credit in the article and potentially even be on the episode where we talk about it. So all kinds of options there. I get it. Not everybody has the ability, the capacity to be able to contribute, $3 a month to something like this. But for those who have been, we appreciate you. For those who will, we appreciate you as well. And we're just so glad for you guys to be able to provide this stuff that we do to the world, because it makes it possible, and we enjoy doing this. So
yeah, and I hope those rewards are that people are listening to those going, damn, that's really cool, because they really are. I mean, those live casts are really, really, really fun, and it's usually a good group of people, then I'm not talking like hundreds of people, but enough that if you've got a question, there's a very good chance that the speaker is going to answer your question, right?
Oh yeah.
It's not like you're going to, a ballroom or something with 1,000 people and you have to wait in line at the microphone with 30 other people to get your question asked, So it's a small group because it's just patrons that get access to it. So you really get like some nice one-on-one time, with the guests. So it's a really cool deal, and I love Patreon. I love the patrons. I love Patreon, and so thankful again for your support.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought it up, because I've wanted to be appreciative to our patrons in a more public way, and this is a good opportunity to do that. So again, patreon.com/Brülosophy. You can at least check out the rewards and see if you want to support us in that way. We like to think that for what you're getting in return, that reward, that alone is probably worth the $3 a month or whatever it is. But then just to know that it's helping us as well. So, well, there you have it. Our unabashed thoughts on 2021 and how it impacted Brülosophy. I'm sure I speak for all of us when I say that we are very excited to get past this COVID crap and get back to our regular lives. Here's to a happy 2022. Cade, any last words?
No, a Happy New Year, everybody, and can't wait to see you in 2022.
Yep, Happy New Year. Don't forget to subscribe to the Brew Lab podcast, where Cade goes into the lab with brewing pros to discuss the fascinating work they've done on our favorite beverage. And make sure to keep up with all of our beer and brewing antics over at Brülosophy.com. The Brülosophy podcast is made possible by the generous support of our sponsors, as well as all of our rad listeners. We seriously could not do this without you. Cheers to everyone who has subscribed and left a review of our show. It makes a huge difference. If you haven't yet, please consider doing so. Head over to Brülosophy.com/support to view a list of ways you can easily help us to continue producing this podcast. If you want a reward for your support, visit Patreon.com/Brülosophy. Thanks again for listening. We'll be back next week with another episode of the Brülosophy podcast. Until then, think beer.
Start off the morning with some hot tea, lemon and honey, cause it suits my throat. Put some herb in the bowl, yeah, it's homegrown. Ain't gotta go through the middleman no more.